Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So, Hybe Entertainment's new sub-label, Ador, headed by a former SM executive, is coming out with a new album for the first girl group that they're producing under this sub-label. However, that wunder-producer is in hot water because netizens, I guess it has been building up, but they do not like how she seems to portray young artists. And on a related note, how young is too young to start school? Because President Yoon Seok-yeol just finished his vacation to record low approval ratings, and some of the reason is because he unilaterally decided to make kids start first grade 1 year earlier. And does this American classic Clinique have any place in the K-beauty regimen? If you already have this, are you going to throw it away if you wanted to do the whole K-beauty thing? Or is there a place for even American products that you get at the department store? All that coming up. Stay tuned. So the new girl group has 5 members and it's called New Jeans, like having a new pair of pants, and apparently it's supposed to be inspired by that feeling of having like a fresh pair of jeans. And also they said that it's a play on, like, you know, genes like genetics, like, so this is like kind of like their new label, kind of like, look at us. This is kind of like a new creation, because in a way, this is going to be like SM Entertainment sort of moved over to Hybe, because the former creative director of SM Entertainment, her name is Hee Jin, she was responsible apparently for the concepts of Girls' Generation, Shiny, FX, EXO, Red Velvet, and NCT, and she worked at SM until 2018. In 2019, she entered Hybe as the chief brand officer, and then just last year in 2021, she was made CEO of her own sub-label named Ador, which stands for All Doors One Room. Also a little bit creepy. So essentially the charge against her is that she's kind of creepy. And if you look through her Instagram, and if you look through some of the shots that they took in media interviews at her house, the type of stuff, that images that she fixates on, just even in her own personal collection, let's say, could probably be considered illegal in many countries and states. And the previous images and concepts that she was responsible for, she wasn't responsible for every single one in all of those SM groups, but the campaigns or the album concepts that she was responsible for, people have been accusing her of using a lot of sort of like this Lolita type of themography, and it is a bit concerning. It is a little bit creepy, especially when I remember back in, I think it was like 2016-17, when I saw NCT Dream, you know, the younger subgroup, and I was just like, that is the most disgusting way to portray or introduce these guys. And then, like, you're just like, you know, that's, you know, when they're talking about chewing gum, it's about something else, like blow a bubble, whose will be bigger, I'm confident, soft chewing gum, so big it's about to burst, be with me, let's see who wants more, playfully I'll go to you, I have a good feeling, you're my chewing gum. And if there was not any kind of doubt, or if there was any doubt in your mind, that closing shot in the music video just said it all. Ew. And so this new group, New Jeans, under the Hybe label, it is getting a lot of attention. So she knows what she's doing. She is, if it weren't for people who would respond to this stuff, and if people around the world didn't like to consume it, then we wouldn't even be talking about this right now. So, you know, some of this is not her fault. Like, she's just doing her job. But it looks like it's a skill in the sense of taking kind of a metaphor of something young and usually like candy, you know, like, well, I remember even like Lollipop, there was that song, right? And ice cream for a Red Velvet, and chewing gum for NCT Dream, and now we have cookie for New Jeans. And yes, you have to admit that these girls are stunningly visually like in the visuals department. I mean, they know what they're doing. Like, they got the visuals down, they got the style down, they got the attitude down. They've already released 2 music videos, and the official album, like the full album, is dropping August 8th. So that's like tomorrow from when this was recorded. And so she knows what she's doing, and she knows how to make the metaphor of that kind of innuendo with a seemingly innocent object. So in this cookie song, the cookie song that she made, let's hear some of the lyrics of the cookie song. I mean, do you think she talking about cookies, or do you think she talking about cookies? Made a little cookie, baked it just for you, this treat, but you know that it ain't for free. So they're definitely selling these cookies. Looking at my cookie, yeah, the scent alone will make you see, taste it. You can't stop at one bite with me. You'll lose your mind till you don't want other tastes. Yeah, I'm hiding, but I really want to see your face. Made a little cookie, come and take a lookie. Baked at my place only, come get some. I mean, all of that. The netizens are even saying that these are inappropriate lyrics for these girls. How old are these girls? You're probably wondering. Age 14 to 18? Yeah, that's like even like right now. So like, you know, while they were like going through all of this stuff, probably in production, they could have even been younger. How crazy is that, you guys? And so, and I really hate the fact that they said, come and take a lookie. Like, they're really then now feeding into this yellow fever kind of thing with the kind of, you know, the wrong audience around the world. However, you know, fans are also responding extremely positively, supposedly, although these numbers can be a little bit manipulated when they say pre-sales. Like a lot of these album sales, sometimes you can't really trust them because I even heard from one very popular K-pop artist, I guess in the first or second generation of K-pop, where he said his dad bought a bunch of CDs and he has a basement full of his own CDs because they needed to get on the charts. So, I mean, that came from his mouth. So you can't always trust these, but from the way that they have been reporting, they're saying that it has really broken a lot of records. It gets the new album has had the highest pre-orders for a girl group debut, 78,000 copies, and it surpassed even aespa and ITZY, and that was just for the first day. So right now they're at a tally of 500,000 pre-orders, so it's the biggest pre-order in history. And then also they've already made a huge splash on social media, the follower count. Like, you know, people are very excited about this group, which they should be, because I think these girls are all very talented and they seem to have worked extremely hard. But I mean, look, I mean, how young is too young for this kind of imagery? And there seems to be something a little bit like lost in the eyes here. Overall, I think the concept, if you just take it as a whole, just without any kind of judgment, is more of like, it's kind of fits into the Blackpink genre. Like, we're the coolest girl in school. Like, there's so much hair flipping, man. Like, if there's hair flipping like constantly, then you know, like, that's the subgenre. Like, oh, so cool, so cool. So I wonder if that hair ever gets tired or frizzed, but it's probably well manicured and maintained. So That has been a bit of a controversy because people think that she has a history of exploiting youth in this manner, and people, in some ways, I also read online, they were relieved when she stopped, styling for SM and had, transitioned roles. And at the same time, it's just like, oh my gosh, wow, is this the way that Hybe wants to really go? I mean, I understand that she can produce, but then when you look at some of these groups for SM, except for like Girls' Generation, like a lot of these groups, they seem to have had some sort of like a tragic ending. Like there was like a lot of people within some of these groups. Like I'm looking at, in particular, Shiny, FX, and even XO, where people, the group members had like kind of broke down, mentally, like severely. And so I don't know, maybe it was just too much too soon, too young. So I don't know if it's like good to kind of like keep pushing them, because you're not going to have the longevity right now with BTS and Hybe. What we've come to really value is how well self-sustaining and how long this group can go at a very high output. And yes, we do see like how they've kind of, are burning out now, but throughout the process, you could kind of see like the way that they were going about the business was a little bit different from the other agencies that seem to just kind of like burn out their stars and really subject them to all sorts of crazy demands. And so this is perhaps good that she is under her own sub-label. So like she's responsible for everything that happens, and actually if it goes great and wonderful, then kudos to her. But at least it's kind of a smart move, I would say, to say like, okay, this is your thing, like try to make it work, and then if it doesn't work, it's easier to manage the departments a little bit better in that kind of situation. But in any event, this debut has been a bit marred with people being worried about this new group. On the other hand, it's up to the other old K-pop stars maybe to send warnings, or for maybe the new girls don't really care. On the other hand, people are saying like they're so young, they don't even know what there is to be concerned about. And so that is a little bit troubling. It is a little bit worrying. And if you can tell by now in the K-pop industry, there really are two core audience segments. And, the one that gets the most visual publicity are the young fans, in their teens to maybe 20s, who are really the concert goers and kind of like have that, traditional music teen obsession with music stars. But in Korea also, what's for the girl groups, it's kind of like men who are like 40s and above, who are also another target audience for these groups. So it's creepy. That's why it's creepy to say like how young is too young, because everybody knows that the combined demographic of customers probably is needed for this entertainment consumption. And so there's innocent reason for teenagers and young adults to kind of like stan like young K-pop idols. But there's really kind of only one reason why a man over their 40s would listen to something from a K-pop girl group. And let's just say they're probably not doing it for the song. So what do you think? Do you think this is too young? I think it's got some red flags around it. Okay, so speaking of young, President Yoon Seok-yeol's approval rating has just sunk to the lowest level ever, and he just wrapped up his vacation. And so part of his vacation, you know, when Nancy Pelosi came, he's like, oh, sorry, I'm on vacation, but I could give you a phone call. So he gave her a phone call, and that night he went out to go see a play, and then he went out for drinks and dinner with the actors of the play. Like, you know, I'm all for him supporting the theater. I think that is so awesome. However, the timing wasn't good, and then at the dinner it didn't look like those guys were enjoying his conversation at all. It's just kind of like, okay, we have to sit and listen to him lecture about something. I know he's the president, but wow, why does this not sound interesting? That's the kind of like facial expression I think was in the photo. His approval rating went down into the 20s to 24%, and that was already down 4 percentage points from the previous week. People were really concerned that his approval rating went below 30. When he announced that he was just going to go on do a staycation instead of going way far out into the countryside for a vacation, so that he could take care of some state affairs, I think in one poll his approval rating bumped up to like 34%, but then it just dropped straight back down to about 24%. And I think that is essentially, they're saying, like at the level of ex-President Park Geun-hye's approval rating when she was in the worst part of her presidency, and she got impeached, and with, you know, the current President Yoon Seok-yeol's help as like the prosecutor in charge at the time. So people are not liking his personnel choices because they're saying there's a lot of nepotism, like some of his wife's company staff is like filtered into the Blue House. We're just like seeing all sorts of like shadiness there, but really they're seeing like a lack of experience and qualifications, and then not communicating well, and then of course being dogmatic, basically being like the emperor president that he said he wouldn't be. The thing is that there's almost no way to avoid that in a man of his age and in the structure that we have set here in Korea. However, he said that, but the election showed us Korean people did want a change. And so I would say this is as much as you'll probably get, you know, in this generation. It's probably as far as you can get with less dogmatism, but they should still be called out, because what just happened? He made a unilateral decision to say that by the year 2025, we're going to start first grade a year earlier for all the kids. Right now, in international age, kids have to be 6 years old in Korea to start first grade. Kindergarten is optional, like you can go to preschool, you know, all that stuff, but 6 years old, now he's gonna make it 5 years old. And people are just really up in arms because parents weren't consulted, teachers weren't consulted, the educational officials were not consulted, schools were not consulted, so everyone was just been like protesting against this decision. The government said that it would help ease educational inequities, it would reduce the burden of educational expenses, and it would help perhaps working parents because you can just put your kid in school earlier. But everybody's saying like this makes no sense because the way that the competitive environment is for Korea, it's just going to make people start private tutoring 1 year earlier. And then they're also saying that 5-year-olds are not developmentally there to be able to sit in a classroom environment all day, that their attention span is from 6 to 15 minutes. And so that's way less than the 40 minutes per period of a class. You know, they're spending all day there. And a lot of kids, you know, it depends on the rate of your maturation, but some kids can't go to the bathroom by themselves. Some kids can't eat by themselves at that age. So that's going to be an incredible burden on the teachers. Like there's going to be like potty pants, like every other minute. Like, what are they gonna do? Just like have like a whole basket full of extra clothes or diapers or something? And then it's also been a bit of a problem because there's been a backlash from people who are saying that this is going to eat up into the precious childhood time that these kids already are sacrificing by, once they are 6 years old, they're basically, in the marathon and doing all sorts of intense academic, rigorous kind of like training, and a lot of these kids can't have a normal childhood. Now, what is the real reason that the government cited as the kind of, oh, well, here's an added benefit, but the real reason essentially was that they're looking at a demographic cliff. Korea, of course, is an aging society. We are running out of people. And what they are saying is that there's going to be a shortage of workers. Statistics Korea says that the working age population will shrink by an average of 360,000 people each year in the 2020s. Now here's a little bit of a coincidental number. Do you know how many kids are born every year? About 260,000 kids. So if you start these kids a year earlier, you're essentially trying to replace, eventually down the line, the lost workforce. Because when Korea hits 2040, it's going to be an extremely aged society, and there's going to be a huge burden on the younger working population to support the older generations. And so what they're trying to do is like sacrifice these kids so that they can start work a year earlier. And people are just like, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? And would that really work? Because already people are just like, oh my God, this young little kid doesn't know how to do anything. Like, would that really solve the problem for the shortage? And so people are just thinking like, this is just crazy and it's going to cause a lot of confusion. And then of course you're going to get really angry people who are directly affected. They sound a little short-sighted, but they're directly affected, where if you are in an overlap year, you theoretically, like let's say, 2025, a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old will start first grade together, and then when they graduate, there'll be double the number of people saying like, oh, it'll be so much more competitive to get a job. Honey, but what we're trying to say is that by the time they graduate, there's probably going to be too many openings because there's not going to be enough people who are in the working age population. So they could probably worry less about that, but they're still going to be upset because that class year will have double the number of kids to compete with academically to try to get into the same number of spots in these prestigious colleges in Korea. So what do you think? How young is too young? Is 5 years old too young? Because apparently in OECD nations, there are only a few countries, like about 3 countries that start at 5, and the majority is around 6 or even 7. Some of the Scandinavian countries wait until you're 7 years old to start primary school. So this, again, how young is too young? We're making our kids grow up too fast. Okay, so if you're into skincare, you most likely have run into Clinique at some point in your experimentation with skincare products. And I remember, in high school in America, like we'd always try Clinique, and, it looks like it's so clinical and it's more affordably priced compared to the other stuff in the department store. So people would try it, but like you'd always say like, oh my gosh, it's so harsh on my skin. Like, what is going on? But the bottles are so attractive that I always like think like, oh, maybe there's a chance. And I was wondering why this actually does sell in Korea, if it does have any sort of traction with Korean consumers. Now, this is the main moisturizer, the standard day or night, but I think most people use it during the day. And I think they've changed the formula like a lot of the time over the years, but from the reviews that I saw online, a lot of older Korean women, maybe like 50s and above, really respond to this because I think it has a little bit more of like that mineral oil content. So, some people are doing like slugging, with like putting Vaseline on their face. I would say like, okay, where does this fit into the K-beauty routine? I would say like, let's say you want to do like a more refined version of slugging where like, maybe put some of that Vaseline on my face and you're just like, oh, no, you can't do that. I would say try this. So what I would do is maybe like use this maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, just to give like an extra hydration when I feel like I want to have like something kind of thicker. But in general, I would not use this every day. So does that kind of fit into the K-beauty? Well, let's just say like if your face seems a little bit too raw or red, you need this. Why? Because this is the thing that makes your face all raw and red. Because I will never forget one girl who worked at a competing counter, I don't know where she was, and then I was like, oh, what about Clinique? And she was just like, that stuff takes off nail polish. And I was just like, oh my god, so no wonder. But I would say, if you ever need like to disinfect something with like something that's like rubbing alcohol but more mild, this is good. And then maybe like once every 2 weeks also, if you want really like a deep pore clean with a toner on a cotton pad, this is really good because it really gets down in there. However, I think if you use this like every day or twice a day, as they say, your face is going to look like a steak. It's just going to take too much off. I haven't tried whether it takes off nail polish. If it does, let me know. Let all of us know. And then Moisture Surge, I think definitely did have a formula change because I remember when it first came out and I was excited about the bottle and stuff, but it was horrible for my skin. However, now, okay, the reason why I kind of don't like these Clinique products is that they're so manipulated for like when you're in the store and you're like, ooh, this is nice. This one has so much silicone in it, I can tell. But if you do need some sort of like moisturizer that does then start to be like a primer, this is kind of like a primer. And I would say it's not bad. And it does seem to like seal or lock in. So for like the winter months, if you really want to have some sort of like a kind of invisible barrier on your face and you're not using a primer and you're just doing skincare, then I think this would be a great alternative, or just kind of like a top coat, like when you're waxing your car, like a top coat. I mean, this is basically trying to like sand down so that you can put on like a base coat. And then this is essentially, I would say like, maybe good if like your skin got like irritated, like almost as if you needed to put Neosporin on your face. Maybe you went a little bit too crazy with some alpha hydroxys, and you want to kind of like, give it like a bit of a treatment where you're kind of protecting your skin a little bit more. Yeah, maybe this. But I would say like it does have a presence always in the duty-frees and department stores here in Korea and online, and people seem to actually use it. Like Korean consumers seem to actually use it, so it may have a spot. Alright guys, well what do you think? I mean, like, how young is too young for like education? And then also like, how do you feel about this new girl group that's coming out from Hybe Entertainment? Please put your comments below and make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye bye.